Good morning. I am Celia Argueta, your host of BNG Connection. BNG Connection is a bilingual informational program for small business and nonprofit entities. Today we're going to be talking with Judy Stevenson, a small business navigator from Montgomery County. Really, our purpose today is to inform the small business community about resources and opportunities in the county. And we have our special guest. I will say that when I started my business a few years ago, Judy was instrumental in guiding me, leading me to offices and resources in the county, and she has been very supportive. So I'm very thankful and lucky to have her today talking to everyone, and we'll get started with some questions.
I think that you probably were one of the first businesses that I talked to when I actually started in my role.
Right, so. Exactly. So full circle. So really, and I think we both share our passion and our mission to support the growth of businesses by sharing information that's out there now with social media and all these different outlets. We see more and more information readily available at no cost to businesses. So I think it's important for us to continue to keep putting information out there for startups and for those businesses who are maybe further along in their path. Mm-hmm. Okay, so today I wanted to start off by asking you, what is exactly the Montgomery County Business Solutions Group? How did it come about? What's its purpose and mission, and when your role there?
Well, as you know, I started with the county, it's been about 6 years now. Mm. And my role was created by the county council. And then last year, the council came back and expanded the services available to the small business community by creating the Business Solutions Group, which is located in the office of the county executive. There are several things that we focus on. We focus on trying to help businesses understand their relationship with Montgomery County government. So whether they're a business in the county or they want to do business with the county, what kinds of things do they need to know, what resources are available to them. We also work internally to try to help improve county processes and streamline things to make it easier for small businesses to comply with county requirements. Mm-hmm. And then when the expansion occurred, the other thing that we realized was a gap was that there are times when legislation is passed and implemented that businesses don't know about. Right. Things like minimum wage. Just recently, the council expanded businesses that need to comply with minimum wage to businesses that have one or more employees.
Right.
That's a change, right? Historically, we have not been very good about communicating that out to the business community so that they know they have to comply. Right. There are also lots of other processes that aren't really clear that we could help by doing outreach and communicating with businesses so they understand what the requirements are. So that's kind of the role of that group. It's to help navigate, it's to improve internally, and it's to help communicate more effectively.
So more specifically, so if I'm a new small business, a startup, and I'm based, my home-based business, and I'm looking to expand perhaps resources in the county, whether it be office space or whether it be maybe a small business loan, or whether it be maybe permitting. Like, for example, I know that I refer some clients to you because they wanted to understand who to go and talk to in the county for business opportunities. Is that something that someone will come to you as a small business?
So I get a lot of questions about, I'm starting a business, do I need a license? Do I need a permit? Do I need, what kinds of steps do I need to take?
Right.
I have a good understanding of the different types of businesses that do need licenses. The good news is a lot of businesses don't need a license in Montgomery County.
That's good, yeah.
Sure.
Right.
But it's not clear, so a lot of times businesses will call me and say, I have this kind of business. My approach is to learn about the business, so tell me what it is you want to do, and then to put together kind of a customized package for them of, okay, well, here are the resources that would be applicable to you. Here are the licenses you might have to look into. If you're going into office space, here are some things you should be aware of. There's a lack of knowledge in the business community about zoning and use issues, which it's complicated, but it's really important for businesses to
So
understand.
that's a good point. So, for example, I've had some clients approach me wanting to expand. Like catering is one example. They've maybe been renting a space for a while, or and so they're ready to expand, and they run into the issue of zoning and all these requirements, kitchen,
Right.
And so it's complicated.
It is complicated.
And so would that be a perfect example
Yes.
that someone that I could say, hey, go talk to Judy or come in and talk to her?
Sure. So the thing to think about with businesses is that they may interact with the county in terms of zoning and permitting once or twice in their business life.
Right.
The first time they move into office space and maybe when they expand. They're not going to be experts at this.
Right.
But if they come to me and I'm accessible basically, so they can say, well, here's the address of the location I'm looking at, I can check the zoning for them.
Okay.
I can check I can look into the use, but I can also tell them what they need to do to find out what the use is currently. I know this is all complicated, but these are things that can really trip a business up, because if they make a commitment to a lease in a place where their business is not allowed,
Right.
that's a big cost.
So would you say that part of starting a business, we understand there's definitely a lot of resources which we'll learn from you, and where to look for, but maybe doing a really thorough assessment before you even think about where you're going to have your office.
Absolutely.
I tell people all the time, think about a long-term strategy, right? Because having the location at the right place, it means
Right.
a lot, in terms of just opportunities,
Absolutely.
certifications, thinking beyond, like you said, permitting and licensing. You don't want to go into a place, sign a lease, and then realize
Absolutely.
that wasn't probably the right choice to make.
And you raise an interesting business type, which is catering. So what I find interesting is that there's a lot of people that want to start a business, and there's two things that they know really well. One is food and one is kids, right? So they either want to start a food business or they want to start a daycare. Those are two of the most highly regulated businesses that you can enter into. By all rights, you want to have your food supply safe, you want to have your kids safe, but people oftentimes don't understand that there are a lot of requirements for commercial kitchens if you're getting into the food business.
Yeah.
You need to understand cottage laws if you're small, but then when you're ready to grow, you need to understand what regulations will apply to you. Luckily, the health department does do plan reviews, and they have some really great documents out there. If you're going to renovate a space for a food facility, here are some things to think about. And then again, you can take your plans in and they'll review it. You can do that in permitting as well with the pre-design consultation. Once you have an idea of where you want to go and a rough plan, you can go in and talk to them, and they'll give you some thoughts on what to watch out for your particular location.
No, and this is great, and this is the whole purpose of why we're having this discussion and this type of program, because I think that it takes a village,
Absolutely.
and so we all need information and the right people to go and talk to. Part of the initiative for this program is educating our minority contractors, Latino businesses who often go to places and they're given misinformation. And so the purpose is to really also help them navigate, help them understand that they can come to someone like you, get away sometimes from the intimidation sometimes, because you might be in a government office.
Right. I think I am more accessible.
You're more accessible. And so talk about, so your services are free, obviously. And so people can just make an appointment with you. And it's all confidential, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And so you can help them develop a plan of action. Obviously, they have to do the work.
Right. I wouldn't So to, kind of draw some lines, I
Right.
wouldn't like review their business plan.
No,
That's
right,
not my role.
right.
But my role would be, I need to understand your business
Right.
to help you figure out what the licensing, permitting, zoning requirements might apply to you.
And this is helpful for me that I do consulting, you know,
Right.
because then I know 100% that we're going the right way and the right path. You know, it may
Right.
be that it helps that person decide, you know what, I'm not ready yet,
Right.
or I need all these things
Right.
in place for me to know
And
that I'm ready.
I should say a couple things too. Whatever I tell a business, ultimately the business is accountable. Okay?
Correct.
And I refer people all the time to, you need somebody to help you with your business plan,
Right.
or you need to go to a lawyer or accountant, because every business is unique.
That's right.
And especially when they're very early on and they're telling me their ideas, once you get into a more formal place,
Mhm.
you need to consult with professionals that
Yes, yes,
can
absolutely.
look at, your
Right.
contracts, your
Right.
license, everything.
Everything. Yeah.
We've talked about before, sometimes people from the outside have a better understanding of the whole process than the people on the inside.
Inside.
So
That's
it's
right.
always important to consult with people that can help guide you in the actual activities of
The
creating a business
implementation,
plan.
right? Exactly. Helping them implement.
Exactly.
Okay, great, wonderful. Going back to the topic of daycares, because I
Yes.
get a lot of questions too about, I wanna, I'm really good with kids.
Right.
My house is empty now.
Right.
My children are grown. I want to start a business.
Right.
Talk about some of the resources available, because I understand there's a program in the county.
So there's a couple different things. So
Mhm.
first of all, one thing to be aware of is the least amount of regulation is for home-based daycare.
Okay.
But they still have some requirements in terms of the fire marshal, for instance, has a checklist that they need to look through to make sure their home is set up properly to
Mhm,
do a
mhm,
daycare.
mhm.
The county has a child care resource and referral center that, again, provides connections to resources that are available. One thing to remember is that for the most part, daycares are regulated at the state level,
Mhm.
but this county child care, it's in the Department of Health and Human
Mhm.
Services, so it's the
Mhm.
child care resource and
Resource.
referral, or it could go the other way.
Mhm.
I never can keep that straight. They can connect them to training opportunities, to sometimes there's subsidies available for getting supplies.
Really?
And
Okay.
again, they have a sort of a
Yeah.
documented, what does it take to start a daycare, which we also have on the business portal, which I think we'll
Right.
talk
We'll
about in a
talk
minute.
about it. Uh-huh.
But, so there is actually an understanding at the state and county level that we need more daycare options for people, that it's something we don't really have enough of. But I will also say, beyond the county regulatory and the state regulatory environment, people really need to make sure they have the right insurance in place, and that they're,
What about zoning?
well, zoning,
Because
I think for home daycare, I think that,
I get asked a lot about that.
yeah, I think I think a home daycare center, as long as it's within certain standards in terms of how many
Mhm.
students
Mhm.
or children,
Children.
is allowed, as long as it's allowed in your neighborhood, which may or may not be.
Mhm.
You probably would need to register as a home-based business
Mhm.
with permitting.
Mhm. Mhm.
Then as you start getting bigger and move out of the home or have more kids,
Mhm.
there are more zoning requirements that apply, where you can do those kinds of things,
Mhm.
where you can have daycare centers, depending on what size they are.
Mhm. Mhm. Interesting. Well, wonderful. So you're definitely a walking resource book. In terms of what additional services does your office provide?
So let's talk about the county more
The
generally.
county more generally.
So our office, in the Business Solutions Group, our main role is navigation. So it's information, but also navigation. So where do you need to go to look at these things, to understand what the rules and regulations are, what the processes are? But then the county has programs that I think are not well known, that
Mhm.
can be valuable to the business community, especially small businesses. For instance, if you're moving into office space for the first time, it has to be Class A or Class B space, so that's another one of those issues you
Mhm.
could talk to a real estate person
Mhm.
about.
Mhm.
There's the MOVE program, which provides a subsidy of $8 a square foot to the business signing a lease
Mhm.
for the first time in Montgomery County. It has to be a 3-year lease.
Okay.
And there are rules, but this is an opportunity.
Mhm.
It's not for commercial, it's not for industrial type of space, but it's for office space.
Okay.
But a small business that's now growing to the point where they need an office,
Yeah.
that can be a really great incentive.
Yeah. That's
It's a
great.
check to the business owner who signed the lease. And it's a
Okay.
one-time grant. But still, again, if you're moving into an office, having a little bit of grant money to help buy furniture would be really helpful, right?
Yeah. So does this apply to direct leases with a landlord or like workspace? There's now this workspace, share space.
Okay, so it would not apply to shared space.
Okay.
However, the good thing is, if you go into shared office space and at some point in time expand into your own office space, you are eligible for that.
Within that same facility?
No, it doesn't even have to be there. Anywhere in the county.
Anywhere in the county. Okay.
So going into shared office space does not make you ineligible in the future for taking advantage of this program.
Got it.
Because for the most part, when you're in shared office space, you're like a member of this facility. You're not leasing space per se.
Right.
You're a member of a
Yeah,
organization. So when you're ready to move out of there into bigger space, that's when you become available.
Oh, that's great.
As long as you meet the eligibility requirements, it's very simple. It's a really simple program.
Okay.
So that's one thing. Some other things that are not all that well known is the county does outsource to 2 organizations a microloan program.
Okay.
Again, this would be more focused on startup types of companies. And those programs are managed at Life Asset and also at the Latino Economic Development Center. So those organizations have their own lending models and requirements. We don't dictate to them how they make those loans. We just make the funding available, and then they lend it.
What are the requirements for a business to participate in this particular loan?
So again, the requirements are set by the organization, not the county.
Oh, okay.
So Life Asset has its own lending model. It's a particular way they lend. It's like peer-to-peer.
But in terms of location, do I have to be
You have to be in the
Montgomery
county, yes.
right?
Yes,
so
you have
that's
to be in the county.
And that could be an office, home-based business, or
Whatever the loan is for, it's whatever their lending standards are.
But it's for Montgomery County. So that's an incentive. That's a
Right.
plus for people in the county that
And-
may not know about.
So that loan program, again, it was a program that was created by the council, the county council. That goes up to $15,000. So the loans within the microloan program are capped at 15. However, the Latino Economic Development Center does bigger
loans.
loans. It's their own underwriting standards.
Right.
And they might ask for some foundational kinds of things for a business to do. That's their program, but it's a great resource. And then as the businesses grow a little bit bigger, there's another program in the county called Small Business Plus, which, not to get into the weeds, but basically the county has deposited funds, like anybody would, in community banks in Montgomery County. So these are banks that are headquartered here, and they're community banks. So it's Capital Bank, Congressional Bank, Eagle Bank, and Revere Bank, okay? Basically, we're just making deposits like we would in any bank. But those banks are committing to match that amount of the county's deposits in small business loans to Montgomery County businesses.
Okay.
Again, it's their underwriting standards, their loan practices and procedures. They're just committing to make the loans to Montgomery County businesses.
And what is it called again?
It's called Small Business Plus.
Plus. And so I can go to any of these banks and ask for that.
Just say you're a Montgomery County business, you're interested, you understand they participate in Small Business Plus, you're interested in a business loan.
And this is generally for all industries?
All industries, because banks typically have a portfolio of loans, and sometimes they're heavier in one type of loan than another, so they might want to balance that out. Or sometimes their expertise is in a certain area like health. They do lending to healthcare businesses. So it may be that the banks have their own niches that they focus on. Of course, the business would want to do their own due diligence. They could go to all of these banks and ask
Right.
But it is a way to ensure that there's capital available locally for our local small business community. You have to be bankable.
Yeah.
So you have to be a business that's at that stage where you can qualify for a business loan. But, it's certainly an option that's out there.
That's great. So that's good, because I think a lot of times, so I typically work with a lot of construction, home improvement, maybe services, and they tend to think that some of those loans are for government contractors, people who are already doing, a lot of government work, and there's opportunity obviously for them taking advantage of a county made resource for their business.
Right. Now, I would expect if they were to consult with somebody like you, you would make sure that their financials are in shape, that they are ready.
They're ready.
To go
they're
to a bank for them.
pre-qualified. Yeah.
Right. And one other area I wanted to talk about, which I'm trying to get businesses to think about more broadly, is, and this is a resource the county has that can be used by business, and it's data. So the county makes a lot of data available to the public. If people don't know about Data Montgomery, they should, because it's a public portal that allows access to a vast array of data sets. Just as an example, recently we were able to add to that all of the businesses in Montgomery County that pay business personal property tax. Okay?
Oh, really?
Now, it doesn't say how many employees they have, it doesn't say what their business is, it doesn't say how much tax they pay, but it's a pretty comprehensive list of all the businesses in Montgomery County. There are certain exceptions, because very small businesses, home-based businesses, may not pay business personal property tax.
Right.
But it's a pretty good list, and you can sort and filter out of Data Montgomery. So you could look at businesses in Gaithersburg. You could look at businesses, at least by zip code, in Germantown.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a data source. It's a business development tool.
Do you have it's something like this? I was curious. Does it track number of new business that get added to the county, and maybe broken down by whether they're Hispanic or how many?
Probably not.
New,
So the business personal property tax is a county tax, but it's as many businesses will know, you file your tax return with the state of Maryland.
Right.
It's through Department of Assessments and Taxation, which is where businesses register. That information is not collected.
Right.
Okay, so you only get out what you put in, right? So that is not something the businesses are asked when they register.
Okay.
So you don't know what kind of business, specifically what that business is doing, because there's no like NAICS code or commodity code that's recorded. There's a description, but it can be pretty broad. And we don't collect data on.
Right.
We don't collect woman-owned. That's just not collected in that registration process.
But that's interesting. So it more and more, I think data is being collected, and I think a lot of times we as business owners don't use it, and it's
Right.
probably very useful in terms of for marketing and for just reaching out and just knowing who our clients are.
Right.
I think.
Well, one thing, people look at data, sometimes they look at it only in one way, okay? As an example, businesses that want to do business with Montgomery County register in our central vendor registration system. But what they don't think about is that that's a public database. So, to your point about minority-owned businesses, you actually can export out of that vendor registration system a list of businesses that are certified minority-owned. Okay, you can export the local small businesses. You can export by different types of commodity codes. So, I mean, it's a limited database because it's only businesses that are interested in doing business with Montgomery County.
Right.
But it's data.
But it's data.
Right? And that one you can tease out some really specific things. Green certified businesses. You can export and identify those. So if you're in the green space,
right,
that might be a group of businesses you'd like to talk to.
That's another good point. Is that something that I get contractors like there's some electrical contractors that are moving more green. Everything's green now. Actually, janitorial businesses moving to all green, you know, and so that's a really good point. So are there particular resources, incentives for businesses wanting to go into that particular area?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because one thing that the county does do is certify green businesses. So if it's an industry where green is important, then they can get that seal of approval. The county does the certification, but we also accept other certifications.
Okay.
There's national certifications for green businesses. So,
But those can be very lengthy and very costly too,
Yes.
and I think for a small business
Absolutely.
may be prohibitive. So,
well, I would say just along those lines, so the county's process, I would encourage them to take a look at
To
it.
take a look
I
at
mean,
it.
it is rigorous
Mhm.
because there should be value
There should
to
be,
it.
right.
I suspect it's not as cumbersome as the national certifications, but it's a process.
It's a process.
I think the state also does a green certification, so that's another place to look. You know, I think that going forward, green certification is going to become more and more valuable.
Okay.
It's kind of in its early stages now.
Right.
The county doesn't really have any procurement programs related to green businesses. Sometimes
Do you foresee
I think
more,
it will become
more, because
especially here, because I mean,
right.
the environment is very important
Right.
to leadership in Montgomery County. So I would think that would be something that would become more and more important.
And that will be also to a differentiator between one
Absolutely.
contractor and another,
Yep.
so something to think about. So
Yep.
I think thinking about early planning and
Yeah.
where, you know, it fits into your business plan or model, that
right.
would be really important. So
Right.
that's great. Talk to me about, I know you have an amazing portal. I've gone and, you know, searched things around, and I think it's very comprehensive. Can you tell me a little bit more about, you know, what things you've added, what things are there, and is it accessible in other languages?
So let's start with that.
Yeah.
So the county's approach to translation is we build the Google Translate into every page.
Okay, right.
So all of the content on the county website can be translated into a vast number of languages. I don't know that that's perfect, but it's something,
It's something.
right? I think it's better than nothing.
Yes.
So as good as Google Translate is, that's the tool that we use. But let's go back and talk about the business portal. So as we talked about, I've been doing this for 6 years, and one of the things that I'm charged with is not only helping businesses find information, but figuring out how the county can do a better job of making that information available so that businesses can follow the rules and regulations. Early on, it became clear to me that the burden was on the business to find the information. And there's, say, 10 different county departments that regulate or have oversight on the business community. And making it incumbent on them to figure that out was really challenging. I mean, some of them are not intuitive.
Right.
The Office of Consumer Protection regulates secondhand personal property dealers, and you have to register your parking lots with them. The Office of Human Rights is where a minimum wage law and sick and safe leave laws are managed. So there's a lot,
There is.
right? So the purpose of the portal, and I consider the current version of the business portal to be a phase one. It is a doorway. It is simply an aggregation of information for businesses. So what we did is we went out and looked at where are all the business touch points. Let's put all of those touch points together in this portal. We didn't recreate content. We're not changing how the departments interact with businesses. We're just providing a doorway for them to go through to find the information they need. Instead of them having to sit there and look at the county website and say, gee, I wonder if I should go look at the Department of Health and Human Services to find out if I need a license from them. We've grouped it in a different way. So it's, do you need a business, here's business licenses, here's business certificates, here's regulations, here's services, not department specific, but
Need specific.
exactly.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, you still have to poke around.
Sure.
Because there's like probably 3 or 4 different ways we could have organized it. We picked one that we felt was intuitive, but it's still something that the businesses have to look at. One thing we did was we created some starter kits for businesses that are common: restaurants, childcare centers, group homes. That is, again, a little more specific to that type of business. So if you're a daycare center, here's the kinds of things you need to think about in zoning. Here's the kinds of things you need to think about as far as employment law. Here are the things that you need to think about just that are specific to your industry. So we have, I think, 5 or 6 of those now. We'll probably do more as time goes on.
Okay.
It's a challenging process, as most businesses know when they start a business, that there's a lot of different things to think about. But that's one way we've organized it. One thing that we will talk about is training and workshops.
Workshops, yeah.
The portal has a calendar of training and workshops.
Okay,
We
great.
have tried to focus on either county training and workshops. Like sometimes our county departments will do a training on something that's specific to business. For instance, one's coming up March 6th on with the Department of Procurement on prevailing wage laws. We also partner with organizations in the community that do that provide services to the business community. So that might be the Small Business Development Center, the Maryland Women's Business Center, the Latino Economic Development Center, and SCORE. Those are the main ones. We allow them access to put their classes on our calendar. So it's a great resource for all kinds of different training on all kinds of different topics in different areas of the county.
Wow. So it sounds like there are a lot of resources for small business. It's like sounds like you keep busy. I'm sure your phone keeps ringing, and probably will ring more after we get to share this information with the community. Talk about the March 6th prevailing wage. I saw it, and I'm registered to attend. Why is it important for somebody who is either working already in the county or would like to work in the county? So we sort of know what we're facing in terms of requirements and.
Well, anybody that is interested in doing contract work for Montgomery County government, depending on the type of business that you are, there are different regulations, procurement regulations that may apply to your business. For instance, the Minority Female Disabled Owned Program. Anybody who has a prime contract with Montgomery County is expected to have a performance plan in place to utilize these underrepresented businesses. Okay, prevailing wage, living wage, depending on the type of contract, the county expects their contractors to pay their employees at a certain wage rate. If you're not aware of that, and you're not complying with that, then there are penalties that could apply to your business. So you don't want to have that happen. So you want to be aware of what those are and making sure you comply with them.
Great. So, and I know we'll be doing some follow-up to that particular topic on minority female disadvantage with other folks and the topic of prevailing wage, because I think it's very important. I do get questions from contractors about, well, what do I need to pay? What do I have to pay? And I said, you have to look at each contract, right? And you're bound to whatever the prime has to pay, the sub has to pay. So, but it's a learning curve, I think, for a lot of our minority contractors. Government contractor is new for some Latino businesses that I work with. It's, it's trying to, like I said, give them the information that they need to be able to get organized and be able to become compliant prior to even, I think, submitting a bid, and in the process you learn different things. You don't know everything until you sometimes are actually doing the work. But I think the point of this whole conversation is to know that there's resources, there's people like Judy who are accessible, and there's people obviously in the county that are willing to provide information and give you the right information. I think that's the key. Sometimes people go to other people that may not be the experts or may not know. Why not go
Right.
directly to the
Right.
folks, right, that
Right.
know this stuff?
Absolutely.
So, this is really thankful. Thank you. This is very. At least I learned a lot from you today, if anything.
I figure you know more than I do.
But it's good, it's good because we want to put this type of information out there. And so today we're obviously interviewing Judy. This video will be translated in Spanish because it is meant to be a bilingual program. And sometimes we'll have guests in Español and sometimes in English.
Well, I think I'll go back and look at it in Spanish.
You
and
have
then
to
I'll
go
learn
look
a
at
little
it in Spanish. So it's a good way.
I was going to say that you could be a resource too if people are uncomfortable coming to me. If
Right.
they're not confident in their
Absolutely,
language skills, it's often a good idea to bring somebody along.
Yeah, absolutely.
help,
I think that's really my mission. And you've known of me and what I've been trying to do for the last few years. And I think I'll be sharing some success stories this year. We've been working with some minority Latino contractors, working in the county, working in the state, getting some business with the state of Maryland. And it's good, it's a good feeling to know that if you enter the right portal and if you have the right people supporting you, working with you, and we're all gonna sometimes make mistakes, right? But there's always opportunities. I get calls from just this morning. I gotta go talk to, my accounting because something's not right, and I wanna get my stuff ready for my contracts and my certification. So there are people who are willing to recognize that maybe they didn't have the right kind of advice or initially in their business, but now they're really ready to get that organized, and you can do that.
In my experience, businesses want to do the right thing.
Yes, absolutely.
And if they don't, most of the time it's just because they didn't know. And people want to do the right thing.
Right. And working for the county, I think it's a great opportunity. It's a great part of your business plan when you're starting out. We've talked about this. You have to have a diverse portfolio. So the county may be a good client to have. It is a good client to have.
But it should only be one of many.
Right, one of many, and so definitely keep positive, keep always looking for different opportunities. And now, how do we get in touch with you? I know we'll post information with your contact information, but you
So I think that the thing I would recommend people do is go to the portal.
Right.
Because they're going to get there and they're going to see a lot of great stuff. And
they'll get their answers.
And if not, my contact information is there. So then they'll figure out how to get to me. So the portal is www.montgomerycountymd.gov/biz. B-I-Z. So it's easy enough to get to. Go directly there. I would encourage people to take a few minutes to browse before they pick up the phone and call, but they're always welcome to call.
Okay, good. And again, I'm Celia Argueta. I am with BNG Consulting, but this program is brought to you, BNG Connection, and you can call me as well, and I'm happy to, be a resource to your small business growth. My phone number is 240-477-8013. We're happy to answer any questions you may have.
And she'll send you to me.
And I'll send you to
if it
Judy,
makes sense.
If it makes sense. And, stay tuned because we will be having more information coming up about the living wage requirement and what I learned too, because I'll be attending it. And I know that the MFD program, it's a very strong program, and I think it's making some good impact, and I like definitely for more contractors to have the opportunity to know that that's available. So we'll be definitely having more opportunities coming our ways this year. So thank you very much for sharing
Thank you for having
the information. Okay, thank you.